Welcome to Housing Counseling Competency, Unit 3.3, Responsibilities of Homeownership and Tenancy. In this section, we'll be discussing the responsibilities of tenancy. Many times as housing counselors, we hear clients talk about the benefits of buying a home, but it's important for you to be able to balance that information and be able to discuss the advantages of renting. Some of the advantages of renting include the flexibility to move without having to sell a home, the fact that there are low or no maintenance costs involved in renting. There's little financial risk because they don't have to worry about having an underwater mortgage or selling a home for less than what they owe on it. And there's a low initial investment as a tenant also. The cost for deposits is generally much less than what a home buyer would pay for down payment and closing costs. Tenants have various rights, including the right to live in decent, safe, and sanitary housing that is free from environmental hazards, the right to have repairs performed in a timely manner, and the right to be given reasonable notice of entry into the apartment. Tenants also have the right to organize as residents without harassment or retaliation from property owners or management. They have the right to post materials in common areas about their rights as residents, to use appropriate common space for meetings to organize, to meet without the owner or manager present, and also to be recognized by property owners and managers as having a voice in residential community affairs. Regarding non-discrimination, tenants have the right to equal and fair treatment and use of the building's services and facilities without regard to race, color, religion, gender, disability, familial status, national origin, and in some circumstances, age. It's important as housing counselors to know these categories of protection. As a tenant, they also have responsibilities to comply with the lease, to pay their rent on time, to provide accurate information if they're using a housing choice voucher at the time of a certification interview to determine the total tenant payment, and also to allow for verification of that information. Housing choice voucher users also must report changes in their family's income. Tenants have responsibilities to not disturb their neighbors, to not engage in criminal activity on the property, to keep their property clean, and to comply with health and safety codes. Tenants also have the responsibility of reporting any environmental hazards or needed repairs in a timely manner so that the building can be maintained. When a tenant moves into a property and completes a rental application, the landlord will complete a tenant screening report that can include one or all of these screenings or reports, including a review of their reputation, their credit reports, eviction records, criminal records, sex offender registry search, specially designated nationals search, rental references, and verification of employment to be sure that the tenant is a good applicant. The Dodd-Frank Act amended the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It now requires that a landlord taking adverse action must provide to the consumer their credit score to disclose any issues in their credit that the landlord found. Let's discuss the two most contested areas regarding refunds. I bet you can guess it's a pretty common issue. Cleanliness of the unit and damages to the unit. Tenants should review the lease agreement for cleaning requirements upon move-out to avoid this issue. And they should also document condition of the apartment with the landlord upon move-in and move-out. Another recommendation is to take pictures at move-in and move-out to show the condition of the property to prove whether the tenant is liable for damages. Other important areas of the lease agreement for the tenant to be familiar with include the lease length and rent increases, the deposit amount and conditions for pets, where to send payments, any grace periods, and the dollar amount of late fees, who is responsible for repairs, and who the contact person is for repairs, which utilities are covered by the property management, if any, and in the event that either the primary or co-applicant needs to leave before the lease term has expired, it's important to know if subleasing is allowed, and if so, the sublease terms. The Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act protects tenants from eviction because of foreclosure on the properties they occupy. This protection expires December 31st, 2014. This act protects tenants such that they must be permitted to stay in the residence until the end of their leases, except when the property is sold to an owner-occupant, or if there is no lease. These protections apply to tenants under a bona fide lease. A bona fide lease means that it is an arm's length transaction. In other words, the mortgager cannot be the child, spouse, the mortgager or the mortgager's child, spouse, or parent of the mortgager cannot be the tenant, and the rent must be fair market value. This concludes Unit 3.